My Lords, I speak today as somebody who's led a council for 20 years. I've sat on more planning committees than I care to remember. I've been accountable for 3 local plans. I've sat on the SIL review for the Minister in 2016-17. I've even built a few homes on my own account, and I've chaired the district councils for 4 years, established a public sector environmental credits. My Lords, I'm well qualified to participate in this bill. And at the outset, this bill is defective because it doesn't remind ourselves what the purpose of planning is. And of course it is to arbitrate between the private and the public interest. So our work is important here. We need to optimise housing and economic growth within the context of optimising the burden of well-meaning regulations. We need to get the public-private balance right. Now let's not be churlish. There are several welcome moves in this bill. It should not take 10 years to produce a local plan, as the last local plan I was involved in. But superficial headlines fail to finger the felons who hold up progress and, most perversely, potentially reward the biggest blockers. Because this bill perpetrates the myth that councils and councillors are a block on progress. That is wrong, and local councillors should not be the scapegoats for wider failures in the rest of the regulatory private sector. Those who Lord Rooker, and it's a shame he's not in his place because I agreed with nearly every word he said when he talks about silos. And my Lords, just training councillors and emasculating planning committees alone is not going to somehow deliver millions of homes. It's just wishful thinking. Now, this bill has a touching faith that officials can clear away the debris like they don't have any prejudices of their own and get Britain building all by themselves. But in my experience, too often, officialdom in its widest sense is inflexible. It interprets the local plan grounded in data, maybe several years old, stuck in the past, rather than addressing the needs of tomorrow. And my Lords, as I've said, I've sat on enough planning committees to know that not always, but too often, officials in other parts of the state put the black spot on proper proposals. Too often, statutory bodies claim a veto to advance their own narrow interest and on their own timescales. And the noble Baroness, the Minister, will remember how we both worked together to get the Planning Inspectorate to do their job in Stevenage at a time when they thought that 1,000 days to start an inspection was an appropriate lead time. My Lords, if you give someone a veto, don't be surprised if they use it. And Natural England in particular, but also the Environment Agency, the MMO, the Highways Agency, National Rail, or whatever they call themselves nowadays, and I want to be charitable here, often use overly precious objections, advanced on specious science, or contested legal opinion to make their weight points. And that's before we deal with a whole new set of other regulators. For example, the fire safety regulator, who acts as if Canute-like he can somehow abolish fire. This bill does nothing to address all those other blockers. So, my Lords, councillors aren't the problem here. In fact, we need elected officials at all levels to arbitrate positively in the public interest, to get through these vetoes and to ensure those bodies don't use them capriciously. Now, turning to part 3, there's been a lot of NGO shroud-waving that tells us how a cottage industry of well-meaning ecologists have turned into a drag anchor on our economy. And we shouldn't ignore them, but we must roll back their veto on environmental protections because their demands have become disproportionate and detached from reality. Why, only this afternoon I received an email as part of my casework as a councillor. A development in Norfolk has been told, on the basis of Natural England's calculations, that the cost of installing a loo in a proposed single dwelling in a village not far from where I live is going to be £32,450. We have to stop this. They're on different continents of value to what is reasonable or achievable. So I am concerned that proposals to give Natural England judge and jury powers will effectively nationalise nature and to set mitigation measures at state-run prices. It's dangerous. Get the price too low, and it will kill the incentive to innovate in an area where the UK has developed some world-leading market leadership. And I'm anxious that we're going to undermine innovative local schemes where nutrient neutrality, biodiversity net gain, GIRAMs, SANGs, whatever they are, have been contracted and executed with 80-year tail liabilities. And that's completely inconsistent with the 10-year life of an EDP. On a much more positive note, and I'll conclude shortly, I broadly welcome the proposals for development corporations in Part 4, but I do have concerns over the financial models for these organisations, and it's going to be important to clarify the relationship between compulsory purchase and that cat's cradle of responsibilities between the mayor, development corporation boards, planning authorities, and the interactions with the money and the finance that delivers the infrastructure. Look, there's much more that I want to say, and will do so later on in the process, but for the moment, I welcome this bill and will do much to improve it, but there is more polishing to be done.